Hey everybody, it's Mitchell with Adventure Atmospheres, and today we're going to be going over the little quiver that I made for my wife's Viking Renaissance outfit. Instead of going with a hand axe or a longsword, my wife decided that she wanted to be a bow wielder. And so we sat down and figured out what parts of her costume she still needed and realized that she was going to need a quiver. Instead of going out and buying one, I realized that this would be a fun time for me to try a new thing in leather crafting I haven't done before, and I set out to find some inspiration online, figure out how to make it, and then get into the project. This is by no means an exhaustive list of all the crafting materials I needed for this project, however, it hits most of the high notes, and the biggest thing by far is basically getting that right size leather for the job. Some leather is too thin, it's used for wallets and clothing. Some leather is way too thick, it'd be used for armor or saddle. In this case, we just need good tooling leather that's going to be able to do the job, be durable, hold form. And 6 ounce is your pretty much universal good in the middle leather. Good for light armor, not great for clothing. Definitely shouldn't be depending your life on it for things like saddles. So here you're going to see me drawing out the bottom of the quiver. I had already predetermined a circumference measurement based off of how large I actually wanted the body of the quiver to be. And so I'm just marking out 4 equal lines to be able to basically create arcs. It's not going to be the most perfect circle or the most precise, but I'll be able to basically work it in with a series of arcs, a Sharpie, and then trim it up with the shears. It's going to be able to do the job. It's a piece that, while fundamental to the shape and form of the quiver, no one's really going to be seeing. So if it's a little lopsided, it's going to be okay. I'm going to be lacing in leather lace. It's going to hide a lot of what minuscule oblongness will exist. Of 6 ounce leather is actually going to be nearing its end of life due to this project, and I'm pretty glad about that. I've been using it for a little over a year with little projects here and there, so I'm glad I'm going to be able to use up the majority of it and then cut it into little 1 inch straps that you're going to see later. So I predetermined I wanted the circumference of the body of the quiver to be 9 inches. That's where the lines for the bottom came from. And then I wanted a 16-inch tall quiver, which allowed for 22-inch arrow shafts with about 6 inches sticking out of the top. Now I'm going to be cutting out the leather. There's a lot of different ways you can, whether it be a razor blade or a bespoke leather knife. I'm, however, using a pair of really sharp Fisker fabric shears because for the size of this leather, I found that I get a pretty good line while using these, at least with this size, but this is about the extent in which I use shears with. So I actually made these with a tool that I didn't list. This is going to be a Tandy Leather strap maker. You can adjust the size accordingly and get a pretty good even amount of straps. These are going to be 1 inch straps that I'm going to be utilizing for this and other projects going forward. And it's really good use when you have long straight lines on otherwise unusable material left over. So here we're going to be looking at me making D-ring holders. They're just going to be a little piece of hardware equipment that are going to help attach the D-ring to the back of the quiver so that I can actually utilize those straps as a belt and buckle system. They are not going to really be seen. They're going to be pressed against my wife's back, hidden behind the costume. They are not going to look pretty. I'm not going to really do much post-processing on them, if any at all, aside from dyeing. And there's no real point to do that either, once again, as long as they work. Sometimes it's about form. Sometimes it's about function. Form is when people see it. So after putting in equal distance holes on the bottom circle of leather for the quiver, I counted up how many I had punched in, and then I went in and figured out how to evenly space it using measurements of a ruler on the bottom body of the quiver, making sure that I had the same amount of holes on the circle as I do with the sides. After I did that, I just went ahead and started hole punching them away in order to move on to the next part. After I've got these holes punched in, I'm just going to give it a little look-see-loo to make sure that overall it seems to be lining up. And when it does, I feel pretty confident I'm moving on to the next step. So the next part is I'm going to be adding this nice little tracing and embossing it into the leather. My wife chose this picture of this tree of life based off of some vectors I found online. I then went in with MS Paint and edited it to about that 4-inch circumference that I was looking for. After I attach it to the top grain of the leather utilizing just basic Scotch tape because it's not going to really leave any residue, I'm going to go in with a mechanical Bic pencil and use its soft tip to begin the tracing. It's going to be a little bit more forgiving, and then after I've traced in a good amount, I'm going to go in with a clay modeling stylus that is actually going to really start engraving the image how I want it to go into the leather. After that takes place, I can actually bring out a tool called a swivel knife. This is actually a really important tool for leather art and crafts that a lot of people don't talk about. But if you really want a beautiful cut into the leather and really have a nice 3D form on your artwork, a lot of people are going to be using a swivel knife to cut in, get the general shape. After I've used the swivel knife in order to cut in that general shape, I'm going to be going in with the styluses again with a wet sponge. That's going to make the leather a bit more pliable, and it's actually going to allow me to really flatten out certain pieces and follow those traced lines and give it depth and form. And afterwards, once it's all said and done, the image actually will stand out a whole lot more than if it was just painted. Now, my favorite part about paint is an old welder's tale. Grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't. I know that this picture doesn't look like the best, especially since it's not really dyed yet, but trust me, once I get the dye and paint onto this image, it's going to look leagues better. So now I'm just going in here and putting in the side lacing holes so I can bring the two sides together once I've sewed on the bottom. I did the same thing where I kind of measured out how many holes I wanted and how I wanted them to be equally spaced once I get into the sewing process. So now I'm going to be moving on to dyeing the piece. I'm going to be using some synthetic wool daubers and a blend of ox blood and medium brown Phoebing's leather dye. Dyeing is pretty simple. The more you put on, the darker it will be, but it's going to look way darker than what it's actually going to dry to. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have to be putting on multiple coats for a lot of the really big forward-facing pieces to try to even out the dye. And at first you're going to think it's going to be way too dark, but once you've gone over a couple passes and blended and evened it out, it's going to eventually look pretty uniform. Now I'm going in with some really nice Sharpie art markers that I actually found about a year ago, and I basically found they're an acrylic paint, which is really good for leather work, and I like the colors and they go on super easy, and the tip is broad enough for large swipes, but it's also fine enough for some of the finer details like you're going to be seeing in the branches here of the tree of life itself. And they come in a variety, and it seems like they're ever expanding. Now they've got a pretty large set, some earthy tones, stuff like that. Then I'll go in and I'm going to put down some base coats, top it off with a more primo top coat with a color that I'm actually looking for, and I'll go in eventually around the ring with a gray, sharpening it up with a actual silver Sharpie paint pen that they make, which is going to be way more metallic, which is kind of what I was going for. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so very much. If you wouldn't mind, we'd love to have a like and subscribe. And if you really want to, hit that bell icon. We have at least weekly uploads. Thank you once again. Because I use leather dye on these pieces, the alcohol base of the Phoebing's leather dye actually draws out the moisture and natural oils within the leather, making it less supple. So I actually need to go back in with this steamer that I have and reintroduce some moisture into the leather to make it more pliable, and so that when I'm actually going in and sewing the leather together, the leather lace is strong enough and pliable enough that it won't just crack and snap. It will happen a couple times, but that's more or less because I get it hung up and caught, and not so much because I didn't go through the process of rehydrating it. Alright, we're re-recording this now. Sorry about the fan noise in the background. Now I'm going to be setting some copper rivets with those D-ring holders that I had talked about. I absolutely enjoy copper rivets. Once again, I've said it before, a lot more than crafting rivets because they actually have a true mechanical strength hold. I know that if I set these rivets correctly, they're going to work and they're going to last. I very much understand that the aesthetics of crafting rivets have their place, but in this case, once again, no one's really going to see it, and I know it's not going to come undone for any other unfortunate reason. Now we're going to be looking at me lacing in this bottom part and then up the sides. Once again, I've rehydrated this lacing after dyeing it so it's a bit more pliable. I'm going to set the bottom with a simple box knot, and then I'm going to work my way around the base. Eventually I'm going to be moving my way up the sides. Now I will break it, but the cool thing about it is as long as I do it correctly, I can use a simple box knot on the back end to hide it. There's no double lacing, I'm not stitching this. So in the end, it's just going to basically look pretty much concentric all the way through, and it gets the exact aesthetic look that I was going for. The base was pretty simple, but the thing I struggled most with while going up the side was definitely keeping the tension and tautness that I wanted to make sure that the folded over portions of the quiver were not loose, didn't really have any air gaps to show for it, so I had to keep that tightness all the way through. Adapt and overcome. Sometimes the best tool that you need in the moment is your teeth. Is it uneven at the top? Yep. Am I going to do anything about it? Nope. Does it look how I want it to? Yes. Does it function how I want it to? Absolutely. Function over form, baby. Now we're going to be watching me what's called beveling the edges of the leather straps. This helps get it a more refined quality look, as well as allows it to move through the same size buckle hardware easier. It basically thins the side so it doesn't have as much friction when you pull it through the metal hardware itself. Now I'm going to be squaring up the ends because once again, while I did actually create these straps from longer pieces of leather, the ends weren't necessarily square, so I'm going to go in with that razor, square up the ends. Once I've beveled literally all four edges of both straps, I'll be able to go in and dye it. Once I've dyed the straps, I'll be able to go in and start actually combining the hardware back together in order to create the fully functioning strap. And you're going to see me actually have to merge the strap in the middle using 3 copper rivets. Beveling is actually one of the processes in which I'm rather afraid of. There have been many times where the leather actually got caught within the beveling tool itself and then jerked out under tension and slammed into my finger. That edge is extremely sharp and I've had it actually cut my finger pretty badly. So with the strap dyed, cut up and ready to be fully assembled with the hardware, I'm going to be punching in those holes so the buckle itself has a place, to actually buckle into. But after all things are said and done, I'll assemble the 2 pieces of strap together because I didn't really have one single piece long enough, but that really isn't going to affect the overall function of the quiver itself. And with the 2 sides attached, wham bam, thank you ma'am, you've got a strap I've attached to the quiver and you'll be able to see it later. And for your enjoyment, here's a little bonus section of my wife completing a 3D printed bear skull pauldron that we made for her Viking outfit. Really didn't have as much time to make a full video out of it, so enjoy. Having never laced things together before for final assembly, I really thought that it was a fun tool that I can add to the toolbox. I'm super happy with how the tree came out on the quiver, how the dye on the quiver is very even throughout, and I think my wife did an absolutely stand-up job with the inlay and overall painting on the skull itself. So these were some very, very fantastic crafts that we got to show off last season. I think all pieces that we got to add to Ashley's Viking costume are really coherent, come together quite well, and are very aesthetically pleasing. All in all, these were fun, simple projects to do, and I hope you enjoyed the journey of us being able to create them. Now, as always, till next time.